Alrighty, hello and welcome to Day One Patch Podcast, episode 515. I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. With me today, Matt Lawrence.
Tis I.
And only Matt Lawrence.
Tis I.
Oh, what we've been reduced to. Just the two of us.
I mean, we have multiple, possibly
just
100
the
episodes.
Two of us.
Of just like a duo of people.
Oh, do you think it's probably about that?
Likely. Because of COVID. COVID...
That is right.
It was just us two, and yeah, likely. I mean, I guess we could run the numbers, but I do not want to listen to that many episodes.
Get AI to do it.
You probably could.
Do that?
You probably could, right?
I mean, it's AI. Possibilities unlimited.
I will say something that's interesting about AI is, you know how the general sort of bots like ChatGPT or a Copilot, they do a bunch of stuff, obviously, answer queries, draw pictures, things like that. But there's these posts on social media where it's like, I got an AI to organize these 10 things and this and that and all these crazy things. And I'll be like, oh, damn, I didn't know AI could do that with an Excel spreadsheet or something. So I'll try to get it to do it. And it will just blatantly tell me, I don't work with this. I don't work with that software. I don't work with Excel or whatever the thing it is I'm trying to feed it. And I find it interesting that it's are these people that are doing these quote unquote cool things and then sharing them on social media, are they using a standard or non-general? Yeah,
they have to be. They have to be, right? I can't get ChatGPT to do some of the stuff I see online, and they must be using more specialized AI, right?
I would estimate that, and then also I will say that at least in the early days, I saw a lot of people where they would, let's say one day they would hand the AI a picture and say crop out the background or something, and it would do it. The next day they'd have another picture, they'd say crop out the background, and it wouldn't crop the background out. It'd say, I can't do that. And then the person would just reply with, yes, you can. And it's oh, you're right. Here's the background cropped out.
There is weird stuff like that, which I don't know if it's a limitation or it's just something that has to be worked out. But I had a similar, not the same kind of thing, but similar. This weekend, we have a vacation house, and I don't know the channels on the TV. I don't have to memorize like I do at my own house. And so I needed to I was like, oh, what's CBC News? I don't know what channel they are here on Kojiko or whatever. And I asked AI, and now I had done this a few months ago, and it worked. And I was like, oh man, that's amazing, because I always find it so hard to just Google it and try to figure it out. And they have a channel guide on their website, but it's not intuitive. AI solved that, but I tried it last night, didn't work, gave me the wrong number. And I told it that's not the right number. And I said, oh, sorry, here's the right number. And it told me it's channel 700. And then it said, oh, here's the right number, 701. And I was like, no, that's not right. It wasn't right.
What the hell?
So it's not consistent. Right? No, I stopped trying after that. But that's the weird thing about AI is you get a different result almost every time you ask it for something.
I will say that makes it seem like it's an intelligence of some sort, at least.
Yeah.
It makes it feel oh, okay, this is a human. If you ask me a question today and then you ask me in a month and you ask me in a year, I'm going to have different answers, different phrasing, and things will affect that answer, more knowledge. I don't feel well that day, whatever. I'm kind of wondering whether I don't know. It's I want more consistent results from my AI, but then it's just going to feel like a big old drop down list. You know how Amazon's Alexa would kind of feel like that sometimes, where it's just this giant if statement, for the lack of better saying it, or it's if this, then this, then this, then this, or this.
Yeah. I mean, but again, this is kind of what a lot of people have been saying. It's currently at the worst it's ever going to be. And so you can only imagine what's going to happen in the next, 5, 10, 20 years, what the hell's going to happen then? Well, plus you got all this competition now too.
Well, one thing that's a question though, is it's is this stuff going to plateau at some point? I feel like that's on everyone's minds a little bit, in the industry, where it's okay, how I can't remember which CEO, I can't remember if it was Satya Nadella or maybe it was Sunchar from Google, but they said something the low-hanging fruit has been done, and it's something now the hard work begins.
Yeah.
And there is still a question of certainly that phrase makes sense, but where are we at? Are we at 50% of the actual potential, and the rest of the 50% is at an uphill battle, but it can only ever get 50% better? Because right now we're kind of working I think exclusively, although I don't know if there's other ones. But as far as I know, we're working pretty well exclusively with LLMs. It's like, how far is the LLM technology? I feel like people think it's going to like take, if we marry it with mechanical engineering and robotics, we're going to have like, really advanced robots. I don't know if that's true, right? Because what if it says like, I can't walk today, and then you say like, yeah, you can, and it's like, oh yeah, I can. It's like, are we going to have weird, like, are we going to have weird experiences with this thing like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, Matt. We're
Ryan?
starting off with a video game fun fact, which you have prepared. Take it away.
I did indeed, actually. I have a weird one today. It's not. I actually really like this fun fact, but it was a weird thing that I just absolutely stumbled upon on YouTube when I was not looking for a fun fact.
Okay.
So a bit of a preamble, I suppose, an introduction is I've been really hitting the PSP hard lately. I've talked about going back to the PSP a few times in the past year plus on the show, but lately I've been really actually playing it quite a bit. And I just actually purchased another PSP, a red one, a red 3000 model from eBay. And it just actually arrived today. So that's exciting for me. So I've been on this PSP kick. And because of this, of course, YouTube starts feeding me PSP videos. And it fed me one that I've never heard of. So the PSP is well known for iterations, including PSP 1000, sometimes called the PSP Fat. This was the original version of the PSP. Then this is the version that I had originally when I was a kid, the PSP 2000. This is commonly called the PSP Slim. And this is a thinner version of the PSP that had a built-in video output port and also had a revised loading tray. There was also the PSP 3000. This is sort of the acclaimed model. This seems to be the one that a lot of people really like. It was also called the PSP Bright and Light because it had an improved LCD, but it also, and I had no idea this was a thing, it had a built-in microphone on the small bar of buttons at the bottom below the display. So that's kind of interesting. It's like the PSP is starting to get a little more multiplayer, like online multiplayer, not just ad hoc type thing. And then we have the PSP Go, and this is what I thought was the last iteration of the PSP. This is kind of an infamous model. It's a slider model, meaning the display slides up to reveal the controls and the buttons. It got rid of the memory cards or at least got rid of the mandatory memory cards. It still had expandable storage. But
what were the memory cards called again?
The memory cards were called Memory Stick Pro Duo, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
Yeah, I have that in my notes here. Yes, Memory Stick Pro Duo. That was for the PSP 1000 through 3000. However, PSP Go, again, had internal storage. I believe it was 16 gigabytes. It also was expandable via some other, I don't think it was Memory Stick Pro Duo, it was something else. And it also had Bluetooth, which is super cool. However, this is the part that makes it kind of infamous. It had no UMD tray, so no physical media. This was just all based on downloads. You had to download everything, go in the PlayStation Store and do that. Now, this is where I thought the sort of iterations had ended, and depending on where you were in the world during this time, I suppose, that's true, but there's another PSP. Do you know of this one, Ryan? After the Go.
A mainline PSP?
That's right. A mainline, like, official released PSP.
In North America?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then I have no idea.
So this is called the PSP E1000.
Wow.
More commonly known as the PSP Street. So the PSP Street was a budget-friendly iteration of the PSP that was released in 2011, and it primarily targeted European countries and other PAL territories, such as, of course, Europe, as I mentioned, but other places like Australia, New Zealand, and other places as well that are on that PAL standard, the PAL standard. And it was not officially released in North America, and it was not officially released in Japan, which I found was surprising.
That is surprising.
Now, the PSP Street, if you're thinking like 2011 kind of sounds a little late, it is because it just launched just months before the PS Vita, actually.
Wow.
Now, yeah, it's a weird model, and we're going to get into like all the bits and pieces of it because it is a budget-friendly handheld for those that didn't want to purchase the new and upcoming PS Vita. The PSP Street also helped Sony transition to a new generation of handheld with a fresh iteration for those that maybe missed out on a pretty vast PSP game library. what's weird about this is the PSP Go, which was the previous iteration of this thing, like I said, kind of infamous. It kind of didn't do well, a little bit of a mess, and then they released this thing. Now, I mentioned budget once or twice in that description, and we're going to find out what they did to this thing, because there's kind of a reason why it's not talked about much other than maybe for nostalgia. So the body of this PSP, the PSP Street, it did not have a glossy plastic body like the other PSP models. It instead sported a matte black plastic body. It was slightly thicker and heavier than the PSP 3000. The PSP Street was 223 grams, and the 3000 was 189 grams. Now, this part's weird. So I watched a video on this, and this part kind of caught me off guard at first. So, you know how, Ryan, you had, I believe it was the PSP 1000, and you used to press a button and it would like fling open the UMD slot.
It was a slider. It was like a little slider you'd pull over and then the tray would open, right?
So it's like spring loaded.
Yeah.
Now, the PSP 2000 and the 3000 were also spring loaded, but different. You had to like manually kind of push it, and it was like an assisted open. It would like open really easily after you manually started that opening procedure. But there was no button to do so. This thing is super strange. So the entire back of the PSP Street could be manually opened up to reveal a UMD drive and battery. Now, when I say the back of the PSP is removed, it sounds like, oh, someone got the screwdriver out or it was a bit more involved. That's not the case. It literally like slides open like the UMD drives did, where it kind of opens up on a slant, just like hinged at the bottom and then opens up. But the whole back of the PSP does this. And opening the back panel was not spring loaded, no real mechanics in there. It was all just manual, right? So there's some cost cutting things. And this is, of course, to lower the complexity and the cost, like I already mentioned, in comparison to other PSP models. Now, you might say, well, if the whole back's opening, weren't there more kind of doors and things on the other PSP models? And that's true. So on other PSP models, the batteries had their own compartment and door, specifically on the 1000 through the 3000. They had their own like door where you could open it up. This whole thing just like revealed the whole back. So whenever you went to go switch a game, you'd kind of push this thing open. The whole back plate would open up. You could swap your UMD, but the battery was right there. So this also helped cut down on the complexity and the cost of making this thing, because it's one hinge, one door. You don't have multiple components and things like that. And of course, this helps drive the cost down. Now, this isn't too crazy. I mentioned that the PSP 3000 and on, so the PSP 3000 and the Go, they both had microphones that were built in. I mentioned it for the 3000, but the Go had one as well. This thing was completely neutered at the connectivity point. So there was no Wi-Fi for the PSP Street. And therefore, there was no way to connect to the PSN and no way to play with others via ad hoc.
So no wireless functionality?
No wireless functionality.
But it had Bluetooth or no?
No Bluetooth.
Wow.
Okay. In fact, like I didn't even research Bluetooth, but I've never seen it mentioned anywhere because Bluetooth is only on the PSP Go as far as I'm aware.
Right.
So due to this lack of connectivity, a problem arises. So not only can you not play multiplayer when you're close to somebody or online, of course, it was also impossible to play digital games.
Wow.
Now, yeah, you cannot play digital games on this thing if you're using the official firmware. So
it's like the anti PSP Go.
It's weird, right? Like it's like a strange. It's weird. It's like a backpedal, but I don't know. It's weird. Like the PSP Go was an outlier, I guess, to be fair. So especially at the time when people were like, I don't want to buy digital games, I want to buy discs, right? Like it was still very much like I want to buy physical media back then. So here's the thing, though. So you might say, you know, hey, like you could still play digital games, Matt. You could throw it on the memory card or like connect the PSP to a PS3 and it'll work. So like back in the day, just to give context, it was possible to transfer digital games that you downloaded to a PlayStation 3, and you could transfer that to a PSP via USB. This did not work because digital games require that the PSP, in this case the PSP Street, was activated on a PSN account. And because there is no connectivity for this thing, you cannot connect or activate on the PSN, and therefore you cannot even do that PS3 transfer. Now, there has been since a software update that has disabled that thing I was talking about with the PS3 and the PSP. But, you know, back in the day, this thing, you would think like, oh, like no problem. I'm not going to have internet anyway. Like I'm not going to use Wi-Fi. I'm just playing solo. Like who cares? I'll just transfer from my PS3. Not the case. Now, there are some custom firmwares. I'm not going to get into that, but there are some custom firmwares that do allow you to play, ROMs and all that kind of stuff. And you can kind of look that up on your own time, but that's not official in any way. Officially, this thing plays UMDs. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't sound great while it's doing it. So the sound was neutered as well. So other PSP models offered stereo sounds. And unfortunately, that's not the case here. The PSP Street offered a single speaker with mono sound. Total disaster. Doesn't sound very good. However, if you are a headphone user, you could still plug in and get stereo sound. So there's that. So the thing is still able to drive stereo sound. And the microphone was, of course, cut because, I don't even know if there's any games that use the microphone, but the microphone is definitely supposed to be for multiplayer and for Skype, actually, because Skype is on the PSP. And unfortunately, this thing can't connect to the internet, so you're not going to be using Skype on there. Mm-hmm. And, of course, one of the bigger things that are usually cut when you start cutting costs is the screen, and this is no exception. So all the PSP models had a 4.3-inch display. The Go was an exception, though, of course, with a 3.8-inch display. However, a lot of the benefits of the PSP 2000 and the 3000 were lost. So the PSP 1000 kind of has like a screen, right? Gen 1, very Gen 1. They increase it. They increase the quality and such to in the Gen 2. They increase the quality and such in Gen 3. So 1000, 2000, 3000. The Go, I think, is known as the crispiest display, but is also smaller, things like that, right? You have this iterative go up, and then this thing takes a bit of a nosedive. So it had similar quality to the PSP 1000, so it's not tragic, but still, PSP 1000 quality-ish. There was no anti-reflective coating. It suffered from some ghosting, and I do believe that was the case for the PSP 1000 screen as well. And it was seen as just an overall cheaper quality display, which is not great either. Now, the storage. So we're in a weird spot, right? So we have the PSP 1000 through the 3000. They're using the Memory Stick Duo. The PSP Go is not using the Memory Stick Duo. It's using internal storage, and it has some other type of expandable storage. Might have been micro USB or something like that. But back in the day, at least for me, 16 gigs was more than enough because I don't even have that on my current PSP, and I'm playing the crap out of it right now.
That was a lot back then.
Yeah, and I believe, I want to say, I didn't do research on the PSP Go, but I want to say from memory, I think the PSP Go had a minimum of 16 gigabytes of internal storage, which is quite a bit. Although, I guess once you start getting into digital games, like I'm still using UMDs today, it's a bit different. But I kind of want a PSP Go now just to try it out. I keep bringing it up. But no, so this PSP, the PSP Street, did not continue with the trend of internal storage, and it instead returned to the Memory Stick Pro Duo. Now, there's one other thing that was cut here, and this is a little bit freaking weird. I'm just going to be honest. So the PSP 1000 through the 3000 all had a row, and this is kind of an iconic thing, of dedicated buttons below the display for start, select, brightness, home, or the PlayStation button, depending on what model you have. The PSP Street kind of neutered this as well, which is really strange. So the PSP Street has a similar but more limited row of buttons. The buttons were not dedicated. So on the PSP 2000, just because I can speak from that, because I've used one a lot, they're individual, clicky, very tactile feeling buttons. The PSP Street has this long stretch on the bottom, like normal, but it's covered by a long rubberized plate with sort of like touch areas. And those touch areas are not capacitive. There are buttons underneath, but it gives that more mushy, less tactile feeling. So not as tactile as independent buttons, more mushy because there's like this rubberized plate. And this, of course, was also done to cut some production cost. However, some people actually argue that this design is better for durability, but some other people say it's better maybe for the long-term actual functionality. But some people had reported that the wear and tear seemed to show quicker and more on the buttons. Like the buttons would still get kind of worn down. Also, weird little tidbit, found this in a video, PSP Street does not have a brightness button. The brightness button is all done in the software. You have to go into the settings and mess with that, which is a serious pain in the ass because when you're on the PSP, if you're going around on a bus or something, you want to change that brightness quickly, like to save battery or to overpower the sun or things like that. And having the button there is just so much better. Now, short of, all these other things, you might be thinking this thing doesn't have, any connectivity or anything like that. What else did they cut, specifically in the computational power department? And I'm happy to report that that was not neutered. So short of the specific downgrades that I've already mentioned, the internal specifications, mostly due to computing, or mostly when they're talking about computing power, were pretty much identical to that of previous PSP models. So this thing still had virtually the same performance, computationally power speaking, I suppose, in comparison to other PSP models. Now, we've talked a lot about cost cutting. We've talked a lot about this thing being a budget device. What was the price? So I decided to look up the MSRP at launch in the UK specifically, because this was launched in a lot of regions, as I've already mentioned. Now, I will say that some of this MSRP does have a price range rather than just a solid price, and that's just due to promotions and bundles and things that came out at launch of these various models. So this is from the UK again, so these prices are going to be in GBP or Great British Pounds. So the PSP 1000, it released in 2005, and it was $179.99. PSP 2000 had a range, so it was released in 2007, and it had a range of $129.99 to $149.99. PSP 3000 matched that, came out 1 year later, 2008, $129.99 to $149.99. The PSP Go, it's a new idea, it's a little fancier, it's got the slider, it's not the same form factor, comes out 1 year later once again, 2009, and it comes in at $224.99.
I remember that feeling expensive though.
I think it's like it
like
goes
kid,
over
though.
the 200 though. Well, it goes over the 200 point for like a handheld, right? Like it feels weird. Could you imagine buying this thing and then like it just kind of fails? Albeit though, when I say that, the PSP, like the PS Store for the PSP, shut down like around COVID time, didn't it? Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
So it's like it's kind of like you can still use the dang thing, as far as I know. You know,
Right now.
That's quite a lot. No, back then, and like that's quite a long time.
But now it's useless, right?
Yeah. As far as I understand, you gotta have custom firmware, or maybe have the stuff pre-installed if it was in the past. But in terms of like, hey, I'm gonna buy a new PSP Go and like, get it all set up. It's old new stock. It's kind of like, well, you better mod that thing.
This says the PSP Digital Store is officially closed. However, users can still purchase new games through the PS3 or Vita store as long as they own one of those platforms.
Yes,
that is because the web and mobile stores are closed. Now, this could be an old article.
No, so I believe that is correct.
Okay.
And then you go to the PlayStation Store on your PSP, I believe, unless I'm thinking Vita. No, I think this is correct. You go to the PlayStation Store on your PSP, and I think you can download from the library of like your previously purchased.
Right.
I believe that's correct. I didn't research that for the sake of this.
Is the PS3 store still up? Did they not shut that down too?
No, they were going to, and people freaked out. Because they were going to shut down the Vita too. It was going to be the Vita, the PSP, and the PS3, and people were like, "What in the hell?" And so they were like, "Okay, we'll have like a neutered PSP because that's like the oldest, and then we'll have like a Vita, and we'll have because the Vita one has some limitations too. Like I think you can't use them. I think you have to use like the wallet or something like that. You can't use like just a credit card like normal kind of thing.
Yeah.
But just to kind of like end this off, so I mentioned the prices. They're all like, $179.99 at most, $224.99, and if it's a good bundle, good deal, $129.99. The PSP Street kills it in the price. So it's released 2 years later. So Go comes out 2009, PSP Street comes out 2011. This thing comes in it comes out in 2011 at 85 pounds to 99 to 100 pounds, so $99.99, which is a great price. I mean, if you're a person that is like, I'm just going to play UMDs and I don't really care about the online connectivity or downloading games and that type of thing, and I don't mind the screen because there's like some concessions there, and I'm going to use headphones. Like there's a lot of concessions you're making here, which is a bit of an issue. But at the same time, it's like, hey, like you're going to get this thing for really cheap. However, what we have to look at here, I didn't exist during this time, or this research didn't exist at this time, but the first PSP releases in 2005. And then this thing, the PSP Street comes out in 2011. So we're talking several years. You probably could get even a PSP 2000 for friggin' cheap, like used or refurbed even at the time, stuff like that. So it's like, where does this leave the PSP Street? I think it's cool. I don't know if I would have bought it because especially back then, these features Like using, I mean, Skype and stuff likely still worked on the PSP, right? Like the PSP was still new in 2011 because there was this new model and the Vita was just about to come out. It's not like Sony's like, Vita, all right, shut down the PSP. Like,
right, yeah.
They don't do that. So it's like the PSP was still very relevant. And so therefore, I would want to make sure I had all the features that I could get, not to mention the better displays as well. Like I'd rather have, it's a debate whether the PSP 2000 or the PSP 3000 has the best display. But I mean, I would rather have the ability to have the UMDs, also download games, right? Have a microphone. Yeah. It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, so I don't know. The PSP Street's an oddity. It's pretty cool. I never heard of it until I started, like I said, I started looking at PSP stuff. A random video from Jacob R. So shout out to that channel. Appeared on my channel or on my home feed, and gave it a watch, and it was pretty interesting.
Like for a collector, it would be cool to get one if you were like a collector of consoles and things.
Yeah. The one thing that sucks about this though, it's like if you're a collector, like you said, it'd be great. The one issue though is like it's not the best one to play. So like for me, it's like I'm kind of like grabbing a couple PSPs because I want to like, mod one, fuck around with this one and stuff like that. Use this one because that's my original one. Use it in its OEM sort of state. My issue, I think, is that like I would buy it and then it would sit there because it's like I'm not going to play a worser experience when I'm going back in time anyway to play games. So I would like a PSP Go though.
Yeah.
Because it the slider model is like something interesting, and it has Bluetooth. You can have listen to like have your headphones and use headphones instead of having to plug in, which is cool.
They're not too expensive on eBay.
A couple hundred or something, right?
Yeah, if you want one in the box, this one's $661. That's pretty pricey.
I for my PSPs, I'm using them. Like I'm getting some dang use out of these things.
This one seems overly cheap. Okay, it's bid. That one's for bid. Oh my god, this white one's kind of ugly.
I think the PSP Go, honestly, you would get a really good deal if you found it at like a yard sale. Because somebody would be like, this thing's been in the drawer for 10 years. Like it was, kind of the infamous model. Not many people used it. Wasn't very popular. So then someone just like buys it and is kind of like, throws it aside. And then it comes up for the yard sale or at a flea market or something. And someone doesn't really know that it's like, I shouldn't say it's like super valuable. Like you have to put the work in to make it valuable now. You have to like put the custom firmware on there and fuck with it and stuff.
Man, this plastic ages like milk though. Holy crap.
I love it. It's awesome, actually.
So many scratches and like smudges on it that are just like infinitely there. You know what I mean?
Glossy plastic. It doesn't matter like what it's on. It just scratches. Like you'll literally like take the protective thing off and you look at it. It's like it's scratched. How did it get scratched?
Yeah. All right. Cool. That's awesome. Just on a funny side kind of fun fact. There was GPS software for the PSP.
Oh yeah.
That? I think. Did you have to buy a piece of software or something? Like it was an app in the store or something like that, and then you needed some sort of GPS attachment or something.
I actually don't know.
I can't remember how that worked. Wild to think about that though. Using your Vita or your PSP as a GPS.
You know what feels weird about this though is humans, like we had the opportunity back then with the PSP as well as other devices to consolidate a lot of devices, and we just kind of didn't do it. I don't know if we didn't want to do it or what it was, but there was just like the ability, like I mean, still like today, it's like we have the ability to get rid of a laptop for a lot of people that don't do computationally advanced things. And dock a phone, right? Like you can use Samsung DeX and other experiences like that. Hook up a wireless keyboard and mouse, and hook it up to a display. And your phone, if it's half decent, will drive the display just fine and connect to all the stuff. And we don't do that. And I feel like that was like an idea. I mean, it's come and gone a lot, but like I want to say like for me it was like 2011 where it was like maybe this thing is going to be what I do. Like I'm going to come home with my phone. I'm going to like put it beside my TV, right? In a dock, and it's going to like, wirelessly control my lights. It's going to power my TV. It's going to be my Netflix and stuff. And we don't consolidate. And the PSP is an example of that, where the PSP is like, it makes sense. If you're bringing a fucking gaming console everywhere with you, I mean, why wouldn't it be your GPS and your MP3 player and your video player? And if someone calls you, they can call you on a PSP with Skype.
And the PSP was before phones were large screen smartphones. This was like in the era of like flip phones and, so you weren't using your phones as GPS at the time. I don't know if BlackBerry had like a map, like a basic map service on there back in the day or not, but
I know there's BlackBerry maps. I don't know when exactly it came out, but
yeah. But yeah, phones were definitely not the navigational tool they are today. So yeah, it was kind of unique to have a PSP do that.
Well, it's still interesting to me that like even today, it's like a lot of stuff has gone to the phone, like including like your MP3 player. Like how many people don't have an MP3 player? They just use their phone. Fair enough. The weird thing is though, is it's like, why isn't this thing our set-top box?
Yeah.
You know, like why isn't it? And it kind of can be like you can cast and there are options to do what I'm saying. But no one, like I've never seen anyone in my whole life come in and like plug their phone quickly into a dock.
I never even thought about that casting situation though. It's like everyone either uses the smart TV, a game console, or a set-top box for their streaming apps. But it's like the modern TVs now both come with AirPlay and like Google Cast or whatever. And it's like you literally could just launch an app on your phone and cast it and then just sit there and watch it. Why do we still use these dedicated devices? That's interesting.
And in a time where like a lot of people are trying to like cut back and save money and things like that, it kind of seems like that's where we're at in life. It's weird that so many people just like, I mean, hell, like I got 2 tablets upstairs. Like not one of them's for work,
Yeah.
but it's just like, why do we use all these separate devices to do the same things? It's interesting.
There's something about having a dedicated player. Like I don't even know if casting would be. Are you getting the best quality possible if I airplayed a movie to my TV? You know, I don't know, but I know that the Apple TV is giving me the best quality possible.
Although, like many people wouldn't even care about that, though.
No, most people wouldn't. No.
I'm surprised. I mean, you know what? Maybe there is, but I'm surprised that there isn't like a channel out there that's like, yo, drop all your devices, just use your phone, and like, here's how to make it work as a computer and stuff.
Yeah,
because it's like some budget friendly people would be like, man, I'm all over that.
I do want that world though, where you have one device for everything. I know certain like gaming consoles you probably want something dedicated, but phones are decent gaming consoles nowadays. I could play frickin' Assassin's Creed Mirage on my iPad. You know? Yeah.
It's what's interesting about it is it's like I don't hear the people asking for it. It's not like people are saying like we want less devices. And you know what? Maybe that's like a marketing thing where these companies want you to. It's like we're gonna sell you phones, and then they kind of dominate phones and like, okay, now we're gonna sell you a watch. It's like, okay, and it's like now we're gonna potentially sell you other wearables like glasses or this and that, or we're gonna sell you subscription services to things like music services and things. So maybe like the marketing around these devices is just like use your phone, use your tablet, use your laptop, buy all of those, and make sure you keep them up to date. Right, keep buying new ones.
Yeah, they don't want you to have one device, I guess.
It'd make them less money. 100%.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Ryan.
Moving on to the top stories of the week. GameStop is looking to sell its Canadian operations. This is from Mobile Syrup. I think this might be the first time we had a Mobile Syrup article.
I don't think that's right. I think we've had it before, haven't they? Or I know we've talked about them maybe off air, actually.
Well, I like it because they're a Canadian like news or tech news outlet. So. But yeah, GameStop has announced its intention to sell off its operations in Canada and France. The video game retail giant didn't provide any further detail regarding the potential sale, simply noting it's part of a broader, quote, evaluation of its international assets. It remains to be seen what company, if any, will be interested in acquiring GameStop Canada. GameStop as a whole has seen declining revenue over the past several years, largely due to a continued rise in digital game sales. While the company's fortunes temporarily improved amid the infamous 2021 short squeeze, it's otherwise struggled on the market. It's worth noting that Canada's first American video game retailer was EB Games, which opened its first store in the country in Toronto in 1993. This Canadian division was actually the company's largest international outfit with 300 stores in May 2008, underscoring how significant the Canadian market has been historically. However, it was predated by Canadian games retailer Microplay. I don't know if I remember Microplay. Do you remember Microplay at all?
Yeah, I think there's still one around in Brantford, actually.
GameStop ultimately acquired EB Games in 2005, and in 2021 made all EB Games locations in Canada rebrand as GameStop stores. So, interesting. Could this be the end of GameStop in Canada? Like, who's going to buy it, and if they buy it, is it going to survive, Matt? What's your thoughts?
Well, I would like to preface this by saying it sucks that they actually closed a fair bit of locations.
Yeah.
And then before that, they took EB Games and they were like, no, they're GameStops now. And then they're like, we're out of here. So you rebranded us, you killed some of it, and then you're like, well, I'm done with this.
Mm-hmm.
Which sucks, honestly. And I just asked ChatGPT this because I don't know the full history, and it's just sitting there reasoning, so maybe it doesn't even know. But I asked because I remember, like, EB, I always thought stood for Electronics Boutique. Mm-hmm. Because I remember in our local mall here, there was an electronics boutique that turned into an EB Games.
Right.
And then actually, weirdly, in our local mall, we had an EB Games and a GameStop. And then the GameStop closed and the EB Games remained. Mm-hmm. And like, I always thought that was like a market test where they were like, oh, like, you know, should Canada, like, whatever. Because I know that, like, there's been some acquisitions and things like that. So, I don't know. Like, this just feels bad. And it is a good question as to who's going to buy this thing. Like, if someone buys it, the only person I can really think of is either like some random conglomerate that we've never heard of, right? Like just one of those, like just kind of like exist in the background. Mm-hmm. Or it's going to be something like Best Buy buys them. And then just like, because I think, didn't Best Buy buy the Source or something?
Yeah. Or I don't know if they bought them, but all those sources, at least, again, our local mall, the Source turned into a Best Buy, like one of the little tiny Best Buys.
Yeah, not a full whatever.
Which is a crazy transformation because it was Radio Shack long time ago. Then it was the Source by Circuit City. Then Circuit City went under. Then it was just the Source. And it's been the Source for like probably 10 years or so, right?
Owned by Bell, yeah.
And, if not longer. It's been there a while. And now it's a Best Buy. But it's like the exact same store, you know, from that entire transition. It's like they didn't even change the stock. They just changed the name on the front.
What sucks about little stores like that in particular is when I go and think of like, oh shoot, I need a computer part or I need a video game or whatever, I think of everybody first and then I think of them for some reason. EB Games is not the case though. Like EB Games / GameStop, they like EB Games was always like a big thing in my childhood. I used to always hit up EB Games, buy games from there. To this day, like around Christmas, I will buy like a fair bit of my gifts at EB Games / GameStop because like I just like loyal to it and I still want to support it to an extent. I bought my Xbox Series X, you know, there and stuff. So like, yeah, like it's, I don't know. It just like holds a place like that in my heart, I guess. And it just sucks to see it. Like it's been kind of on this decline and all this crap. I don't know, this is a mess. I was telling you though, that if someone buys it, I would love for them to be a Canadian company. And I'd also love for them to either switch it back to friggin' EB Games or Electronics Boutique.
Yeah.
I don't want this damn GameStop crap because GameStop's the one that friggin' threw it aside. Like, get out of here, like, you know, kind of thing. Now, here's the thing. So I think ChatGPT went down, but I went to Copilot and I got Copilot to answer me here. So my question was, is Electronics Boutique the same as EB Games and GameStop? And it says here, yes, Electronics Boutique, EB Games, and GameStop are all connected. Electronic Boutique, also known as EB Games, was originally an independent company founded in 1977. In 2005, GameStop acquired EB Games, and since then, they have operated under the GameStop brand in many regions. In Canada, for example, EB Games locations were rebranded to GameStop in 2021. So, like, this rebrand and all this is, like, a lot of stuff kind of happened quickly. Like, the shutdown was very, very recent. The rebrand was pretty recent, like, under 5 years. So, a lot of moves going on here.
I know they had EB Games in Australia, too.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that. Yeah,
kind of strange to think about. Like why Canada and Australia, and I'm sure probably somewhere else too, right? But
well, what's interesting is like you said Canada and where France.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
well,
like,
yeah.
Are they? I wonder if EB Games is still independent in those other regions, or I don't know how all that works.
Let's see.
Because I never heard. I mean, not that I would hear about just some game stores in Australia because I haven't been there, but like it is a question of like, are they still EB Games in Australia, or did GameStop come in, or is it still independent? Like,
Just looking at Wikipedia here, it says originally the operation mainly sold calculators and digital watches. Between 1977 and the mid 1990s, the company expanded and later stopped selling computer software, and other related items. Electronics Boutique also operated stores under the name Games and Gadgets. The Games and Gadgets stores were more centered on entertainment and gaming rather than business and productivity. In the mid 1990s, the company's focus switched to TV-based video games and consoles, though many stores still maintain PC game sections. Although I don't think nowadays, right? That's probably done. Maybe they sell codes, but
the PC section was always lacking, like ever since like probably mid 360 era, Xbox 360 era, I'd say. At least at our local EB games.
In May 2000, in order to unify their company, Electronics Boutique changed the vast majority of its current EB and EB Game World stores to the name EB Games.
Right, so it's just like an internal rebranding at that point to like consolidate, because there was a lot of EB Games. Like I can think of 4 in our local, like our closest city.
EB Games began its international expansion with opening 3 stores in Toronto. They also expanded into the UK. They purchased the troubled British game retailer Rhino Group. Australia in 1997 rapidly became the #1 video game specialty retailer in the country. So yeah, I guess just they're just in the US, Canada, and Australia and UK, and then France at some point, I guess, or was that just GameStop in France?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, all right. Well, Matt, you want to buy them?
I mean, for nostalgia, sure, but like for nostalgia, yes, but also like I don't know what that would cost, and I also don't know how to fix the company. So
that'd be the thing too. It's like they're not profitable anymore, right? Is that right? So it's like if you bought them, you wouldn't really have money to try to fix them because we're not millionaires. We don't have a bunch of money to try some stuff to try to save them. It's just like we'd buy it and we would hop on the sinking ship and then just sink with them.
That's the issue. Like I don't know if they are profitable, but I know that they've been going through a tumultuous time. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be able to like help them, whether like I would just be, like you said, on the boat. I would be getting battered by the waves the same way that they are, which is not good.
Yeah.
I often wonder like EB Games feels like a little bit like Blockbuster, where it just wouldn't evolve. It was like, no, mm-hmm. our money's in this, and like that sucks. I do get it to an extent, though. It's like, if you're like making money hand over fist, doing something, and someone's like, hey man, switch over, do this, you may just be like, yo man, like I don't do that, or it's going to take me too much like training and such to get spun up and do that. So like, it sucks. Like as an entrepreneur, it's still a failure that like something failed, but like I understand it. Sometimes it's just people just being ignorant, but because the reason why I was going to say that is because the like EB Games and GameStop, their economy was like the used game market, right? Mm-hmm. And the used game market, like people buy games, they beat them, they trade them in, they get some credit back, and then EB Games sells that used copy. That person gets credit, they go buy another game, used or otherwise, and then they had memberships, and the list goes on, right? Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff that EB Games did. But the thing, I guess the question is it's like, what do you like? The economy of the physical media overlaps Steam a lot. I hear, and like you and I have discussed this off air, Ryan, is like, what if EB Games had just become an online retailer like Steam, continued the stores, right? Continued the stores as they were,
yeah,
trade-ins and all that, but then have like a launcher. Would people have been susceptible? I likely would have been on the EB Games, like, oh, you have a launcher now? Okay, booted it up, and there you go, right? But now this is the thing is, in like 2009 when we went to college, I think, I really wasn't on the Steam train. And I got on the Steam train because people that I was going to college with... What's that?
That's shocking.
No, I wasn't. I was not on the Steam train. I was always going to EB Games, buying my discs, PC or console. And I had Steam because some games would just install on Steam from a disc. So I had Steam, but then I remember like just being like, whatever, it's just Steam. Like, I don't care. And I saw some people in my class, people I hung out with, that were like, oh, like Steam is the way, and, digital and this and that, and, selling the whole sort of like what Steam is today. And then that's when I transitioned. But like I often wonder like how many people like were still just doing what I was doing, where I was like just buying my physical games, going along my merry way, and then didn't really join Steam until either someone told them or until it became like the zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it was too late, I think, for EB Games to come in and be like, we have a launcher.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like Steam is such a Goliath now, or a behemoth, I guess. I shared with you that one article of that guy who worked at Amazon, and he's like, we're a freaking $1 trillion company. I had billions of dollars to spend to try to take on Steam, and he's like, we couldn't do it. He's like, we tried everything. We tried all these different things. We tried Luna, so you wouldn't need like a high end PC to play games, and that like he's like it wasn't working. He's like they were just too big. You can't, for some reason, people just like Steam and they're going to keep using Steam. And so it's like EB Games would have had to have gotten in super early to digital, right? And I can't help but feel like they were like, no, we're the physical retail store. People are gonna want those discs because they want to trade them in, and we make extra money on the trade-ins. That's what people want. We ain't going to do a digital store. I imagine that happened,
I wouldn't be surprised. However, like when you are a retailer, like I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here because I wish that EB Games had future-proof themselves a bit more.
Yeah.
But when you are like effectively they were a retailer that just had a trade-in program. Like, you know what I mean? So it's not like it's a little bit strange to be like, hey, you're a local retailer. You have these stores. Go open up like a whole IT department and start running an app. Like that does sound a little bit weird.
But that's the problem. You need someone at the top with that vision to say we're going to do that. And I just think it's probably some guys in suits who've been running EB Games for decades, and didn't think about a digital future, right? And so I think they just missed the opportunity, and now it's too late. And even if they made their own launcher, it's like I got freaking 5 launchers on the bottom of my taskbar here. It's like it's just a crowded field now. Steam's so huge, they're not going to be able to compete. I don't know. I don't know what the solution would be for them.
They also made some missteps too. Like I remember when I used to go to EB Games quite a bit, like after school and whatever. My parents would take me there, and I remember talking to the guy behind the counter when they started getting rid of PS2 games and Xbox original games, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we're getting rid of them. Whatever. Like we're shipping them in to like a warehouse." And he wasn't aware of their fate. Like he's like, are they being destroyed? Are they being resold? Are they being bulk sold to somewhere? I don't know, kind of thing. It was just sort of like they're being shipped to a warehouse. Like we're getting rid of them. We're not waiting to sell them in this store. Because I was looking at a game and he was like, if you want that, you should probably buy it now because we're getting rid of it. Like we're shipping all this stuff back soon. And like it sucks that they also didn't have the foresight to say, oh, like retro gaming is going to take off. Like PS2 and that, like, it was a long time, and it's a long time to hold on to a bunch of discs and stuff.
Yeah.
But I also don't associate modern EB games with retro games.
Mm-hmm.
And that could have been a venue, right? An avenue where it was like, hey, you know what? Like we can get some people in, we can refurbish consoles. It doesn't take much space. Have like 1 or 2 refurbished stations in each of our retail stores, or strategically choose some retail locations. We can refurbish things, we can sell them. And they kind of went into devices. I don't know if you remember, they started selling like phones, and you could like trade in phones, and you could trade in like PSPs and stuff.
They still do, I think, to this day.
Oh, okay, yeah. So like devices like tablets and crap.
Yeah.
But it's like it would have been so cool to be like, hey, like EB Games, we have games still for people that want to buy physical, because you can still buy PS5 games and whatever physically. But it's like we also have a trade-in system, so we still have that. But we also do like retro stuff, because right now it's more like a toy store. That's kind of what EB Games has become. It's like toy store plus games. And it's just like retro has so much money affiliated with it. Like people would be trading in retro. They'd be like, oh, that one has another serial number and stuff. And maybe I'm naive, but like I at least would have tried it. Like if I had any skin in the game or any sort of power to EB Games, have been like, we're going to try something here. Because the only thing we're going to do is either die a little bit faster because we're already dying, or we're going to this project's going to fail, but we're going to have a whole bunch of more data and be like, oh, maybe we should go into this thing. Maybe we'll learn to go somewhere else.
From what I've heard, restoring classic consoles and trying to sell them for profit is very difficult. There's not a lot of margin there. like if you want to restore them properly, like DK Oldies is like, they seem to be trying, but they've gotten a lot of flack for not properly restoring them, not cleaning the insides very
Hmm.
well, not fixing certain things, just having like mismatched controllers and whatnot. So they have a bunch of like allegations on the quality of their restorations, but it might not be possible to do a decent job restoring it and selling it for a profit, and it might be possible for like a single guy. Like I watch a guy on YouTube who repairs old consoles and then sells them on different marketplaces and stuff. For one guy, it might be profitable, but for a company as big as EB Games currently is, that's probably going to be tough, I think.
Yeah, and like I said, like I'm not trying to say that my idea would have been like I'll go in and save EB Games, but I do know for sure is like if you're in trouble, at least in my opinion, you should try stuff and not just be
Well,
like
I
we're a toy
mean,
store now. It's like I mean, sure, like try that,
that's them trying, yeah.
try that, but like hey, it's not saving them clearly. You know what I
Well,
mean? It's
because
like
everyone
try
everyone
something
shops on
else.
Amazon now, and I
So do
know.
that.
Yeah. This is that's the point I'm going to make is that I know it's not great that Amazon is like the big retailer and kind of has a monopoly on online sales, but it's like if you want your business to survive, maybe open a GameStop store on Amazon. You know, uh, I guess the trouble there is like Amazon has like a policy that like they have to have like the lowest price or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
But you can list you
Some
can
weird
list
thing.
limited items on there.
Yeah, yeah, but
Like stuff that is almost at a set price, like controllers and stuff. Like sell controllers on there. You know what though? I will say this. I was about to say someone like me would choose EV Games if it was like on Amazon. It was like, do you want to buy for this from EV Games? I'm like, yeah. How many people like me are left? How many people are loyal to the EB Games thing? And I kind of feel like many people aren't brand loyal at all. Period anymore. And I'm not going to say that I'm like brand loyal to everybody either. I would say that over the years, my brand loyalty has faltered to the
mhm.
point where like I can't really think of a new brand that I'm loyal to. It's mostly like
That's a good
nostalgia
question.
kicking in, you know?
I mean, this is kind of before Elon went little nutty, but like it felt like Tesla was going to be like my new like brand. Like it very much felt like Apple at the start, and so it's kind of sad that that kind of blew up in my face, but that's all right. But you're right. I can't think of anything else that I've kind of become loyalish to.
Well, the thing that sucks too is like things get in trouble now. Like you mentioned like Tesla, and then it's like, oh, the CEO or whatever position Elon has, he kind of like is going through some tumultuous times at the moment, and it's like it's hard to like something because that sometimes happens now, where it's just like, hey, I love this game store, and it's like, did you know that they did this horrible thing? And it's like, well, all right,
What?
I guess can't like this anymore.
Well, it's particularly a problem when you have a quote unquote celebrity CEO. It's like I don't know who the I drive a Hyundai. I don't know who the CEO of Hyundai is.
That's
I don't
fair,
care
yeah,
who he is. If he had a scandal, it wouldn't bother me driving a Hyundai around.
because you wouldn't
You know
even
what I
know
mean?
about it.
Because no one would care. No one cares about the Hyundai CEO and whatever sex scandal he might be caught up in or whatever.
Because
You know,
he'd likely just get outed and then they'd get a replacement.
and no one cares. No one cares about that. He's not so intrinsically attached to Hyundai. You know, but sometimes there's a celebrity CEO, which are pretty much all the big tech guys. Are all very much attached. Even Satya Nadella, who's not the original CEO of Microsoft, it's just Microsoft's so ubiquitous and huge
Well, it's old
that
too. It's old
he's
hat.
a very public figure and everyone kind of knows him. So yeah. All right, moving on, Matt.
Moving on to something to talk about Satya a little bit, actually.
Microsoft's Xbox AI era starts with a model that can generate gameplay. This is from The Verge. The Verge reported in November that Microsoft was about to start a bigger effort to bring AI features to Xbox, and today the company is unveiling what it's calling a breakthrough for AI in gaming. Microsoft's new Muse AI could model. Microsoft's new Muse AI model could help Xbox developers create parts of games in the future. And the company says it's even exploring the potential of using it to preserve classic games and optimize them for modern hardware. I think that's kind of cool. Microsoft Research has created Muse, a first of its kind generative AI model that can generate a game environment based on visuals or players' controller actions. It understands a 3D game world and game physics and can react to how players interact with the game. Quote, this allows the model to create consistent and diverse gameplay rendered by AI, demonstrating a major step toward generative AI models that can empower game creators, end quote. That's a quote from Fatima Kardar, corporate vice president of gaming AI at Microsoft. The Muse model was trained on a large amount of human gameplay data from the Xbox game Bleeding Edge, thanks to a collaboration between Microsoft Research and Xbox studio Ninja Theory, both of which are based in Cambridge in the UK. Quote, the partnership allowed us to closely collaborate with the game studio to understand what needs to be in place and how we can responsibly unlock access to a large amount of gameplay data, end quote. I have seen a bit of people who are worried about this and a little skeptical of it. What's your take, Matt?
I think the worry and the skepticism is valid, but I think that AI is out of the box and we're not going to be able to put it back in. I mean, it's kind of one of these things where I think AI is so big that it likely is going to touch a lot of industries. You know, gaming is going to be one of them, and already is to some extent with voiceover work and images and stuff. And, you know, whether you like it, dislike it, whatever, it's too big now to be put back in the box fully. Like governments can come in and, you know, whatever, and they can like regulate stuff or do whatever, because that's what some people call for. But I think that AI is going to always be around. It's going to like find its way around. It's going to figure out a way to stay, because I mean, searching, like just literally searching the web, was always just like Google's job. It was always up to Google to just like, you know, you're the search engine, go search this, go search that for me, go figure out these problems, do whatever you got to do. And then you would get a list of results and you would have to piece those things together. And AI now is like revolutionized search, right? Where it'll go in, figure, you know, grab 5-6 sources, whatever, meld those results together, and then tell you the conclusion that you need to come to, especially in like coding. So like to bring it back to like technology and the, you know, games are coding. At the end of the day, it's like before it was like, hey, I'm going to have to ask Google or other search engines a generic question. I'm going to have to find a generic answers, and then I'm going to have to piece them together myself. The AI goes, looks at all the generic answers, and then tailors an answer and a solution for you. Is this stuff perfect? No. Does it have problems technically and morally? Sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's just too big to put out to put away at this point. I think that some skeptics are still holding on to the idea that AI is going to go away, and I don't see that being the case.
And games are like so expensive now and take so long, and it's like perhaps AI can actually help kind of reduce those things. If it's generating the environments, I don't see if there's a big problem with that, because that's kind of, to my limited knowledge, it's kind of how it's done right now. It's like they're not handcrafting every single mountain. You know what I mean? It's like they have some tool that will generate the mountains for them, and they can like just place them around or whatever, and make a certain type of terrain. But they're not placing every blade of grass and stuff like that. So if you were able to use AI and just be like, this is the world I want, you know, and then boom, it can make it all for you, that could save a lot of time, I think. So I just the only thing I don't want AI to replace is the human creativity part. But it should be used as a tool that can just, you know, make a tree for you in a game world. Like why does some human need to spend hours making that tree or whatever if AI can just do it, you know?
Yeah, I think like you and I were talking about this, and like I'm not necessarily taking a side in this, but it's just an observation. It's like it's 2025. We don't mourn the loss of farmhand jobs en masse from the 1920s, still to this day. Mm-hmm. We aren't advocating for mass employment as farmhands on farms today. You know, yeah. We're not mourning the loss of stables and all the people that stables employed, because we have cars now and we don't use horses for travel as much. So by that like definition, it's like right now, because it's fresh, some devs like, and this sucks, right? But some devs may get replaced. It's possible. I'm not saying that I'm for that. I'm not saying I'm against it. It's just an observation. It could happen, and it sucks. But in 30, 40 years, if AI continues the way it is, we're not going to mourn the loss, right, necessarily, of the human developer potentially. I don't know where things are going. I don't have a crystal ball, but it's the same. It's just the same idea, right?
I've heard that like automation and other things that have taken jobs away from mass industries before. It's like most people didn't get upset because that was a smaller portion of the population, but now it's coming for like the white collar jobs, and that's what's freaking people out. It's like, oh, they were fine with the blue collar jobs going away to machinery and stuff like that, but it's like, well, you should have felt sympathy for them too if you're now crying because AI is coming for your white collar job.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying like like when I said that stuff, like I'm simply stating an observation, right?
Right.
Like I've never heard anyone in my life say, "My God, we need more farm hands," or "My God, we need more stable workers, and we should have more stables." Like, where are all the stable workers gone? Right? It's just like an observation I'm making, and it sucks. And like full disclosure, like I'm a developer, and I fully am aware that like people in my industry, like other developers, are potentially working to replace me.
Yeah,
and like, I mean, it sucks. Like this might suck, but I don't know. Right? It's just I don't know whether I would get a new job, go to a different industry, whether everybody gets replaced. Like what does the future hold? I don't know.
Yeah,
and I don't know how you would, as a regulatory body, handle it. Whether and I don't necessarily mean government. Like Microsoft is the regulator of Muse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also governments that can regulate the companies. And I don't know what the answer is. I think the answer is I think it might just be too early. I'm not actually sure.
Yeah. I do think the interesting part here, though, is the idea of using it to preserve games, because that's a big thing that a lot of people care about. And if AI can be used to preserve those things or make it compatible on modern systems. I even saw that the new 50 series graphics cards from NVIDIA are dropping PhysX support. So does that mean older games won't be able to be played on modern graphics cards anymore? So there's stuff like that is like, could AI do the coding and the porting tasks for us to make games playable into the future? That sounds amazing to me.
I think PhysX also was turned, like you could toggle it off in many games. I don't know about every game, but it does make the game look worse. Like PhysX did have a lot of particle effects and such that would appear.
Right.
But if you were running on an AMD card, you didn't have PhysX. So like, I think you might be good there. However, you are correct. Like, what if you want those things? Like you want the better particle effects and you don't want your experience to diminish. Or if it is something like PhysX was required for a particular title, it's like, how do you deal with that? It's like, well, I'm not going to go put a whole dev team on it because it's not worth it. So handing it over to an AI, that would be good. Like that would be cool. So like the game preservation angle is interesting. I think that's another thing that we overshadow with like the uncertainty is there are some cool things happening. Like that thing that you just mentioned, the whole classic game preservation, that is a cool AI thing. It's very easy to think in gloom and doom. We're all gonna get replaced. We're all gonna die. Oh my god. Like, what are we gonna do? Right? It's easy to do that, and like whatever. That's just a human thing, I guess. I don't know, but there is some positive. Like the preserving old games, I would think largely gamers think is a positive thing.
Right. Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like we're just gonna see where the dust settles. You were talking about like, someone managing it somehow, but like governments are slow. That's going to come after the fact. Once something disastrous happens with AI, then they'll start to write some legislation on it.
Well, the thing too, though, is that, see, we don't even know what the disaster would be. The disaster might be that there's an economic problem at a company. Like, no one died, no one got shot, no one got hurt, no one was replaced. It was just like, this company had a total economic disaster. They couldn't figure out how to monetize it or something. And then that changes the landscape. Like the landscape doesn't have to be, holy crap, we replaced everybody and now we're all going to die. Right. Yeah. That's not necessarily the path here. I just think it's too early to tell.
Mm-hmm. All right. Moving on to our final story for the week. The Last of Us Online was great. A former PlayStation exec says, but Naughty Dog couldn't make it alongside new IP. This comes to us from Eurogamer. Former PlayStation executive Shuhei Yoshida played Naughty Dog's ill-fated The Last of Us Online and said it was great. Factions, as the game became known as, was an online multiplayer spin-off from Naughty Dog's post-apocalyptic solo drama, but was canceled by Sony at the end of 2023 as the studio didn't want to become a solely live service game studio. Was it 2023? It was canceled at the end of 2023.
Yeah, a long time ago. Oh yeah.
That what?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Destiny developer Bungie was drafted in to assist during development, but raised concerns about the game's ability to keep players engaged for a long period of time, according to a report at the time. Yet Yoshida, who recently left PlayStation, was able to play the game before it was canceled, which he discussed in an interview with Sacred Symbols Plus, saying he played the game and it was great. Quote, the idea for The Last of Us Online came from Naughty Dog, and they really wanted to make it, said Yoshida, but Bungie explained to them what it takes to make a live service game. And Naughty Dog realized, oops, we can't do that. If we do it, we can't make Intergalactic the Heretic Prophet. So that was a lack of oversight, end quote. Yeah, so like that's an interesting thing where it's like it's a lot of work to do a live service game. And if you're a single player only, story based experience kind of studio, it's like, yeah, your entire life changes if you try to make a lot of games as a service game.
That or you have to like spin up another team or something as support. And I mean, I don't know if this is still the case, but I know that the Stellaris team, because the game is ongoing, new DLCs come out all the time and stuff like that. They have two teams. They have a custodial team that does things like fixes. They go in and they change things like balances, take player feedback and apply that usually to balances, things like that. And then the other team makes the DLCs. So we have two teams working on, an RTS that we don't hear about all the time, right? It's still it's a great game, and I'm not talking about it like that. But what I mean is if Naughty Dog got a real hit on their hands like a Fortnite, and they weren't ready to support it, that would be disastrous, right? That would be a serious issue. It's a job for AI, actually. No, but no, good on Bungie/Sony using their resources. Like Bungie is a resource of like, hey, how is making games like this? And they're like, well, you're going to need this, and this. And if one of those or more of those are a deal breaker, then fair enough. That's a deal breaker. And Naughty Dog is right to listen to Bungie and back out.
Right. I also think Sony probably doesn't want to hurt their crown jewel studio, if that could have like making a game. Well, I don't know. So apparently Sony allows their studios to choose their projects, because I have a point here too that Yoshida spoke further on live service games at Sony, stating that no first party studio has been forced into the genre. So if we take that at face value and take it as the truth, that means Naughty Dog chose to do that. But I was just thinking, studios can often lose talent when they make a live service game, because people go to that studio, especially if they're known for single player games. They go to that studio wanting to make a great single player game, and it's a completely different experience making a live service game. And so you might actually lose talent, and it would be horrible if Naughty Dog starts losing talent like that just because they wanted to make a live service game. So I'm hoping this is actually the best decision they could have made. Even though I wanted The Last of Us multiplayer game. If it was anything like the one that came with the original game back on PS3, I loved that game mode. It was super fun. Whether I would play it for years on end, probably not, but it was fun.
I almost want to say that, like, if Sony does want to dabble in the games as a service sphere, like just logistically speaking, off the top of my head, it almost feels like they should spin up a new studio, get a lot of talent in there that's great at online infrastructure and all that stuff, maintaining updates, making games that are monetizable, and they should allow that company to run just like a massive deficit. Try, fail. Because look at the information that we've seen. Like I said, Bungie kind of quote unquote saved Naughty Dog the headache of supporting The Last of Us Online. And you're right. Like some talent may leave, but also I was kind of thinking that talent's going to get better and better and better over time. That's wasted time potentially. Because if they go, okay, make The Last of Us Online, and let's say it takes 5 years to make, and it closes down in a year, so it's 6 years of Naughty Dog's life. That's 6 years of single player talent down the drain. Now, of course, some skills are going to be transferable, of course, like textures and things, of course. But that's still a lot of stuff that these guys spun up their knowledge on, or maybe hired out, right? So they maybe hired some online people that they now need to lay off if they decide to go back to single player, or they have these single player devs that spun up skills for online multiplayer that are now going to have to forget that stuff, or they should forget that stuff because they're back to doing single player.
Yeah. Yeah. This part's interesting too. So Yoshida said that from my experience, when studios see the company has a big initiative, they realize riding on that gives them a better chance of getting a project approved and supported. It's not like current PlayStation Studios boss Herman Hulst is telling teams they need to make live service games. It's likely mutual. So this is interesting. So if a studio wants to get funded for a project and Sony is like, well, we really wanted to make some live service games. If you're a studio that comes to them and says, hey, we got a live service game, you're likely to get funded. You're likely to get your employees paid. You know what I mean? So it's probably there's an incentive there, but they're not actively saying, Naughty Dog, you better make us a goddamn games as a service game. You know?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of good to know, but it is just the unfortunate reality we live in where games as a service games are so enticing for these big not studios, publishers, I guess.
Well, it's also potentially a bit of a bandwagon thing. Like, this thing was canceled, a few years ago, and like games as a service really took off. Like maybe I want to just say 5 years off the top of my head ago. And if we think back, and this seems unrelated, but if we think back to Fallout 4, that era was very kind of, hey, like people are making mobile games. And like Bethesda jumped on that bandwagon. They made Fallout Shelter. They eventually made Elder Scrolls Blades. And most recently, they made Elder Scrolls Castles. Like, there's games, that have come out because people have kind of jumped on the bandwagon. And I mean, Naughty Dog may got caught up in that. Like, obviously, there's that corporate politics stuff that's also a pressure that you said. So that's helping kind of catch them. But then also they'll show up and they'll say, hey, we want to make a games as a service game because Fortnite's fun as hell, and our devs love the fact that whatever. And it'd be cool to have Joel and Ellie and whomever else in these crazy costumes, and we can have camps, and the ideas start to flow once you start brainstorming, and you're like, oh my god, we could totally do this. We had multiplayer in the first Last of Us, and it was really cool, and let's do it. And then you get caught up in that, and then you don't realize, like, holy crap, like it's going to cost, like, in terms of like people working, it's going to cost the entire studio's working hours to keep this thing, like, get this thing up and then keep it alive. Do we really want to do that? And that those like negatives, I mean, like everyone's done it, like we've done it. Like the negatives fall by the wayside with the excitement of a new project, like commonly anyway.
Mm-hmm. All right, Matt, that's the news. The news for the week.
It's the new news.
Moving on to what we're playing, Matt. What are you playing?
Me? What?
I mean, there's no one else here to ask. I can ask my cat.
You can ask your cat.
Oh, she's looking at me.
Cat is playing sleep. Oh, what's really weird? So you said that she's looking at you. I don't know what that is. It might be like a sweater on the ground. I thought that was her. So I was like, that thing's not looking at you.
Oh, right in that doorway there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a sweater, yeah. No, she's on my bed over there, like just looking at me.
Staring you down? Like, well, who the hell is this guy? And why isn't he feeding me again?
Probably because I'm talking, right? So she's just like, is he talking to me?
If only animals could talk, you just hear that all the time. You talking to me? You talking to me?
All right, man, what are you playing?
What am I playing? I don't think any Stalker 2 this week. Took a little bit of a break, and we completed Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League.
Wow! Oh yeah, that's right.
So cleared that off the list, and a couple of us weren't present for the end, so I'll totally still play it if someone wants to play it. It's okay. If anyone wants to hop on it, I'll hop on it. That's fine. I did delete it though, and I'm just going to stream it because it's an online game anyway, so whatever. So that's that. The game is very, you can tell it's their first time making a games as a service game. And when I say that, I mean Rocksteady, because the cutscenes and the humor is pretty funny. The story is okay, but there's just stuff in this game that it just keeps throwing shit at you, like pop-ups, and it's like, stop, these are the read these mission parameters, stop, look at this, hey you, stop exploring the world and get to the mission objective, because like Waller's screaming at you and your head's gonna blow up in 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. Marty and I were looking at doing some of the Riddler trophies when I think you went to bed the one night, Ryan, and we realized there were different districts in the city. I had no idea there were different districts in the city. And I was talking to Aaron the one night, and I went into my skill tree, and it was something like, and I'm making these names up because I don't remember them, but it was something like, if you apply this, like prophesized fight gets turned into Inferno fight. And I was like, what in the fuck is prophesized fight?
Mhm.
Like, is there a meta to this game? Am I supposed to be doing that? And the game is so simple. I'm using weapons that I got near the beginning of the game, or like maybe middle of the game, right? And I've found things that aren't amazing to replace them with. The end game's like trick with gear seems to be, this gun does not do any damage to this type of enemy, but because of that, it'll do like 100% more to this other type of enemy, or things along those lines. And so it's like, oh, okay, I guess I have to have one gun that hurts like the grunts and one that doesn't. So I have these two guns, but it's like, this game isn't it. The game is like, you just run around and you kill things so quickly that it's like, why am I getting into a meta here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, why the hell? And so that screams like a single player company to me, where it's like, in a single player game, you kind of become a god and it doesn't matter because that's it. Now, I will say we've only beat, spoiler, I guess, but we beat Brainiac, and the end game is that there's like multiple Brainiacs, there's 10 or 12 more or something. There's ways to get better gear, like some Outlaw or Infamy gear or whatever. Like there's the Bane set and stuff. And the difficulty is supposed to climb. How steep that climb is, I don't know. So maybe you do need to have, go through those tiers to have a legit challenge, and you will eventually need to like micromanage your guns and skills. The issue with the game, I would say overall, though, is it's just so samey. Like, oh, like go and like use these vehicles to shoot this thing. In this mission, only grenades work. Protect this point. Kill this person. And then like when you kill the Justice League, it's just very lackluster. It's just like, make sure you like counter Brainiac when he tries to attack you. Oh, you countered him. Now shoot him. And it's like, that's the same thing we did with the Flash, which sucks. So the game is okay. Like, there's something there. It's goofy and it's kind of funny to play with friends. I don't think I'd be playing it single player at all. I'd say it's like a 4 out of 10, honestly.
It looks like a massive budget for a game that's so bare bones.
Yes, 100%.
You know? Like, it's so surface level gameplay. I didn't really change the technique of what I was doing while we were playing. Marty pointed out that we ran through the gamut. Like normally in these kind of like RPG or like, you know, games as a service kind of games or whatever, there's different rarities and strengths of weapons, and it goes from like white, green, blue, purple, whatever, right? We blasted through. I don't even remember owning a green gun. Like, you know what I mean? We were just blasting through these levels of these guns. You never had a time to really care about them. And like you were saying, it's like they have all these like stats on them with the different effects, and it's like, we're not playing the Division here, where like a freaking guy takes 1 billion shots to kill, and like having a 10% difference can really change how the game turns out. It's like, these guys are getting killed in 2 seconds. What's the point of having 100% extra damage on this guy who's dead with my baseball bat? You know what I mean? Like, that's just so bizarre. So it really falls apart on the gameplay, and it's one of those things where it's kind of the Borderlands effect, where it's like, if I like the game more, I'd probably find the jokes funnier. But because I don't like the game, it's like these jokes are all falling flat. And it's very awkward, you know. And it's like that should be a good joke, but it didn't work. You know what I mean? Like, there's a good dynamic there between the characters. I think they're all kind of funny in their own unique ways, but it just wasn't hitting right, you know.
Well, we were having some major crashing issues too. Like, we'd get to the end of a mission.
Yeah.
Somebody would crash on the last part of the mission, and that was a common crash point right at the end of a mission. So it's like having trouble saving or something. The game would crash. That person would have a 50-50 shot as to whether their game did not complete the mission. They'd have to go back and do the mission again. And the missions are so monotonous. Like killing Batman, it's like, oh, we need to find, I mean, this is a spoiler, but it's like, we need to find the Batcave. There's 3 potential locations. It's like, well, it's going to be the last one. And then it's like, okay, we found the Batcave, so now go in there. And it's almost like this weird, like, little scripted sequence. And then you just kill him. And it's just sort of like...
Well, and you don't really kill him. You go turn off some things, and then you shoot a giant Batman in the sky.
Yes.
And then Batman's lying there dead.
Yeah, it's like this weird scripted, like, thing, and then he dies, and then... Like, it's just... It had no impact. Like, at any point, if they were like, okay, Harley, like, you know, you're out of the game and no one can play her, and then she gets shot, it'd be like, oh, damn. That would be the, you know, oh, well, I guess you're playing as, a second King Shark or something.
Hmm.
There's no impact to the characters. Like, I don't care about Waller, although she's fucking mean as hell.
Yeah.
I don't care about Lex Luthor. Like, I just don't care. It didn't make me care about any of the characters.
It probably would have been an awesome single player game.
I agree, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
The side stuff sucked too.
Anything else, Matt?
So I've been playing my PSP quite a bit, actually. Been playing, still sticking with the Godfather Mob Wars. I've taken out 2 families now. I got 2 families to go in the Mob Wars mode. And I just did the mission in the story where you kill that guy's horse and you put his head in the bed. So I just did that. And the last cutscene I saw was that guy screaming his head off. So, it's pretty graphic, but so I just did that and played a little bit more Icarus. I've been doing that a fair bit. I'm in the middle of like a 14-day excursion or whatever the heck they're called mission. And I'm potentially going to start messing around with like building a base in one of the permanent maps. So I've been kind of playing that game. It just here or there, like once a week-ish kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just started High on Life. I know very little about this game. I've seen like one trailer and was just like, okay. And then I booted it up and it gave me some pretty good laughs. The one guy... I mean, spoilers right from the beginning, but you start in like a Doom-like shooter kind of thing. And this fucking guy keeps coming in on like your HUD calling you. And he's like, hey, I'm your divorce attorney. It's like, what? Why the hell is my divorce attorney calling? And the mission's supposed to be like your ex-wife's doing something. So you have to go like kill her boyfriends or something stupid. Like it's just totally outlandish. And he keeps coming in and he keeps like reintroducing himself. I was like, hey, just letting you know, like blah, 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 blah. He's like, by the way, I'm your divorce attorney. And like disappears. It's just like, what the hell's going on? So
it's just very Rick and Morty kind of stuff.
Oh, it is that guy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I just know that I saw one funny trailer back in the day. So yeah, it's been pretty damn funny. I killed one boss already. I've done one area, and there's a lot of stupid, really, really stupid video game tropes just to sort of end my piece on this. So it's like, there's this guy fishing. He's on the end of the pier and he's like, man, something along the lines of like, man, like, I know so much information. Too bad no one's coming around asking me for rumors and then asking me how to beat the game and figure out how to get into the big boss's mansion or whatever. And he's like, man, if someone would just come and talk to me, it's like, what the fuck? And the knife is hilarious. He just loves to stab things. Like, stab. He's like, cut these people up, cut them up. And then he's like, okay, now turn me around and stick me right into your stomach. Stick me right into your stomach. Yeah, let's do it. It's just like,
Jesus.
It's like, what the fuck? So, that's High on Life.
God damn.
Pretty damn fun. But that, I think, has been my week. What about you, Ryan?
I got some decent Indiana Jones time in. I was hoping to get that done before Avowed came out, but I just wasn't able to do it. So classic. The age of the 30. Me in my 30s is a different gamer than me in my 20s. I'm now having these games overlap, which was never the case before. Usually I could finish them and I would play most of the big AAA games that come out, but now I got a backlog. I got overlapping games. But anyway, I got some Indiana Jones time in.
Are you still? So there's a question on that. Like we played Atlas Fallen a couple weeks ago on stream, and like I was just like, man, we should just beeline it. Let's just do the main story, beeline it. Like let's just do it. And you wanted to do some of the side stuff, which I'm fine with. Like that's fine. However, my question is, I always thought that back in the day you would do some side stuff, but you would not necessarily beeline it, but you would do the main story. Are you a little more completionist now? Like, are you being like, wow, let's clear the map? Like back in the day when I was a kid, it was always just like, man, like, and it wasn't like me trying to rush a game. It was just like, that person needs help, and I'm going to go do that.
I wouldn't ever beeline things. So the problem I used to have was if I hit the credits, I'd have very little incentive to go and play anything else. So basically what I would do is I'd play a few story missions and then I would only do side quests for the next like several hours, until like basically like either exhausted side quests. I'm not a completionist. I don't need to play every single side quest, but I would do it because I knew if I didn't do them now, I would never do them, right? And so I would basically kind of clear as much as I could of side quests and then finally do a story mission,
Right.
right? And then at certain points, it would just be like I would have done everything, and then it would kind of be a beeline to the end, because all that was left would be a story mission. That's basically how I used to play.
So the question there is, though, is what is your goal with the side stuff? Like sometimes you're doing something in the game, like you're trying to level up or something.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not that, are you trying to prolong the game? Because like to me, I feel like this weird, even though it's a single player game, I feel this weird peer pressure to like really complete a game and like go through all the like nooks and crannies. But like sometimes when I'm not even like beelining it to rush it. I'm just like, I want to play, whatever game it is. I'm just going to go do the story. Like I want to experience that story. I don't want to sit here and like mine rocks or some fucking stupid thing. And so I just do the story and then I'm like, I'm just done. And you're right. Like I'm the same way. It's like if I complete the story, then I'm unlikely to go back to the side stuff. Mm-hmm. But that gets me thinking like, well, how useful is that side stuff to me then?
Yeah.
So like, I wonder if you had do you like, what is that? Like, do you want to be like, oh, I didn't rush it, guys, kind of thing? Like almost like kind of a weird, like peer pressure.
Well, no, I don't think so. Like I said, I'm not a completionist, but it felt like if I got a quest, I just felt the need to do it. So if I had a quest log, like let's say I was playing Skyrim and I had 10 side quests built up, I'd feel the need to do them. I wouldn't go out and find every quest I possibly could and find and scour every inch of Skyrim looking for quests. But if I got them, I would have to do them. That's basically what it was.
So you just don't want to leave like stuff unfinished.
I don't want to finish the game and have like 30 side quests in my quest log.
Okay.
Yeah. I want as few as possible.
Because it's just interesting because it's like with Star Wars Outlaws, for example, like I feel like if you just push the story, like when you went to go play Star Wars Outlaws, you played Star Wars Outlaws, the story, and you just like went through, I feel like you'd be done it. And I'm just using that as one example, but same with Indiana Jones.
Although the part I'm at, you do something to piss off Jabba the Hutt, and he basically bans you from leaving Tatooine, and you have to do side quests in order to get back into his favor. You know what I mean?
That's still part like that's what I meant by like if you're trying to level up or do something for the game. Like if you're like I want that sword, it's like well I guess you better do that.
I realized that what killed Star Wars Outlaws and Indiana Jones to some extent for me was the stealth. My patience for stealth is pretty much gone. And what I've been doing in Indiana Jones now is just going in guns blazing, and that game is not a guns blazing kind of game.
Oh no.
So I'm like shooting a couple fascists and then running away and like hiding, and then until like the alert status goes away, and I'm going back in and beating people up and stuff. So it's kind of wild. However, maybe I caught on to this too late, but you're supposed to find disguises. That's kind of how you're really supposed to be handling this. Is you're supposed to go into the place, you stealth your way until you find the disguise, and then you can put it on. You'll be recognized by like the elite troops, but it will give you like a timer so you can like run away if they spot you, right? But the regular run of the mill grunts, they'll just think you're part of them. So I think that's the strategy going forward is find that disguise and then you can more freely walk around.
Okay. The stealth thing is an interesting angle because I think I'm with you on that as well. Stealth hasn't really evolved in games, and I'm so sick of being like, what was that? It's like, oh, fuck me. He's looking at me. And I got to like run into the bush, sit here for a minute.
Yeah.
It's like, holy cripe. Like
it feels like it unnecessarily prolongs the length of the game and slows it down, and it's just like, Star Wars, it's about action and adventure, Sure, sometimes they sneak around, Obi-Wan sneaking around the Death Star or whatever, but it's like, I want to be in there shooting with my blaster and stuff. So I just think it was the wrong decision for them to kind of force stealth so heavily in that game, which it makes sense narratively. You wouldn't be a person blasting up towns, but it's a game. You're supposed to suspend your reality, and live in a fantasy world, not try to make it as grounded as possible. Right.
Well, that's a weird peer pressure thing for me, too, is whenever I have stealth as an option, like I know that some of the Star Wars stuff was mandatory stealth. I think they've largely fixed that. I think you told me. In patches.
Well, the mandatory stuff's gone.
But like what's interesting is like even if stealth is just an option, I feel obligated to do stealth because I'm like, oh, it's cleaner if I do stealth. And it like kind of is, but it's like also like I kind of just want to run in there with a gun sometimes. Like there's definitely times in Fallout where it's like you could creep around. I'm like, no, and then I just run in there with my shotgun.
Yeah, so that's basically what I've been doing. My Wii U collection has grown.
Oh my god.
Trying to look at what I bought. I bought Breath of the Wild on Wii U, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, and Super Luigi U. Those have now been added to my collection. 2 of them are factory sealed.
Factory sealed,
awesome.
like for sure. I don't know. I know some people are like, you have to check it somehow. Like, I don't know how you do that. I thought maybe you would know.
It could be, but it's not like shrink wrapped. I know people have like shrink wrapping machines. It's not like that. It's the proper, the folded over, sealed, whatever, how a game actually comes at the store or whatever. So that leads me to believe it is legit. But again, people could probably figure out how to do that as well. So, but they look nice underneath the cellophane. So,
do you have a Wii U like actively hooked up, and are you using it?
It's right next to me. It's hooked up. I'm not actively using it. I booted it up just to check it out, and it's been a while. But I'm not planning on playing these games. It's just for the collection. Oh,
you don't want to play them? I thought you were eventually going, because you were saying like I was
going to open them.
You may open these like sealed games, and then
I think that's changed now, because it's just like, well, I'm not going to play them. Realistically, I'm not going to play these. So maybe I'll just keep them sealed.
How many games do you need to get? Like, you want them all, right?
No, this is not like a hardcore collection event. But I looked up the 50 best Wii U games, and I crossed off all the eShop ones.
Okay.
Minus Super Luigi U, because that one they made a physical version of it. And I'm just going to kind of buy the ones I kind of want. So it's like, basically the first party titles, there's probably a must. But then a few second or third party titles, like Bayonetta, stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Okay. I really want you to play them for some reason. I want you to play Zombie U.
Oh.
The game's scary, actually.
I know that. Yeah, that's too scary for me.
It used to creep me the fuck out, honestly.
There are sealed copies of Zombie U.
One thing I'm surprised about, though, I mean, that makes sense. It's a launch title, so people would preserve that. But one thing I find interesting, though, is I'm surprised you're not going after a PlayStation thing, because you used to be always a PlayStation guy, kind of still are. Surprised you didn't go like PlayStation 1, okay, let's do it, and then try to get sealed. I mean, I guess that might be a big friggin' price jump, but...
This is the... I'm managing expectations here. The Wii U library is very small, right, and particularly in games you'd want to buy for the Wii U, right? And so I'm choosing something that's manageable. Where PS3, it's like there's got to be a ton of games that could be on that list, right? So, I just can't remember, because I was thinking like, would older consoles have less games? I don't know, because dev cycles have increased. And also, they used to make a lot of garbage games, like the Cheeto Man game and stuff. Like, maybe some of those games are good, but you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, we made a game for every dang license. And it's like, the PSP is even a little bit like that. Like, I'm just wondering in general what the libraries... I mean, easy enough to check. I'm just kind of saying it for conversation. But I'd be curious to see, like, which console would have, like would older consoles have more or less? Well, I'm not trying to buy all the games on Wii U. It's just I just want the top games, and so it would be the top games of PS3 or top games of PS2. Now, I do like the fact that the Wii U games I can find sealed. That is enticing to me. But PS2 and PS3, I don't know if you're going to be able to find a lot of sealed copies of those games.
But not well, like I was thinking PS1. This is just a guess. I was thinking PS1 would have the least.
Oh, yeah, the older you get, the fewer sealed copies they're going to be, for sure.
I mean an overall library. If you were to go after a whole library, maybe there would be.
Gosh, that's a lot, yeah. But that's it. That's all we got.
Well, here you go, Ryan. So, okay, just a little small exercise for you. Give me 2 PS1 games
off the top of my head.
Yeah, that you want sealed. Like even just like a license, like Star Wars or something or whatever.
Gosh. Tomb Raider.
Okay, is there a specific one, or is there only just that one?
I don't remember which Tomb Raiders came out on PS1, but the original Tomb Raider. So
we have, I didn't even think of this, there's graded ones as well.
Mm-hmm.
Are there graded Wii U games?
Yeah, I've seen a few, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we have, this is on ebay.ca, I just typed in PS1 sealed a Tomb Raider. First one that shows up right now, it's a sponsored one though. It's $250 Canadian plus shipping. Comes from the United States. It's Tomb Raider Greatest Hits, and I think that hurts the value. Greatest Hits, I think
it's not the original game, yeah.
Tomb Raider Greatest Hits sealed. It's graded at an 8.5, $250.90 Canadian. However, there is
How is it sealed in 8.5?
Because it like perfection degrades at the manufacturing. Like our manufacturing process has like a yeah,
but wouldn't you expect a sealed copy to have a higher grade than 8.5? How does it look? What does it look like to you?
Not necessarily with a jewel case. Jewel cases get beat up pretty bad.
And maybe if you shake it, you can hear the broken little, like, I don't know what you call those, tines? I don't know what those are.
I know what you're talking about. Man, fuck jewel cases. Let me say that. I got so many fucking broken hinges in the back. Like it's, but if we look here, we got Tomb Raider Chronicles, not greatest hits, not graded, but sealed, $79.99. And then this is a big one now. Not graded, Tomb Raider Collector's Edition, looks like there's 3 Tomb Raider games in here. $400, $399, 99 Canadian.
Jeez.
First one's okay. This is the last one I'm gonna say. PS1 Tomb Raider, the first one, just Tomb Raider. Give me a price, Ryan, in Canadian dollars. What do you think?
The first one?
The very first one, sealed, factory sealed.
600.
Very, very good. $592.61.
Wow. Okay. Well, okay.
So you should do this.
I know. That's at those prices, I'd rather start collecting consoles. You know?
Yeah. Honestly, and I will say this: there looks like there's quite a bit of Tomb Raider games on the PS1.
I do have the Tomb Raider games on Mac. I don't know if those are worth anything, but I do have those games, and they're still in pretty good condition.
Oh, let's look right now. Tomb Raider Mac. The 1998 one.
Yeah.
There's Tomb Raider Gold.
I think I have that one too.
So Tomb Raider Gold, $35, $35.44.
Yeah. That makes sense.
We'll say it. And there's other ones here, obviously, but
all right. That's it.
Sounds like you're buying some PS1 sealed games, bro.
Oh, the Wii U one's going good. So far, it looks like Wind Waker is like the crown jewel that everyone wants for that console.
Okay. Are you gonna get like a display cabinet? I'm just so curious as to what you're doing with this. Like I know you're just doing it, which is fine, but
I'm just squirreling. I just want it in my house, and I'm just gonna never look at them again once I put them on a shelf somewhere. You know, it's just to have a weird human need to have things.
Fair enough.
Or as George Carlin says, it's weird that all of your shit is stuff and everyone else's stuff is shit.
That's a bloody good point, honestly, actually.
All right. We stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/DayOnePatchMedia Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. And depending on who we got with us, we'll be doing Atlas Fallen or Orcs Must Die, which is pretty fun. Orcs Must Die is pretty awesome. I've been enjoying it.
It's what I really like about it is I forget which one Tim said. There's like roguelike and roguelite, but I like that we progress. There was a difference. I didn't know there was a difference until they told us either, but yeah. I like that we progress and like keep that progression. It's pretty good.
Yeah. And we'll see you guys next time.
Hey, yo. Peace.